This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories.
And welcome to my recap of The Bad Batch's last two episodes, episodes 14 and 15, being titled Flash Strike and The Calvary Has Arrived. I want to apologize that this took about a month to do. I just had so many other things that I had to, well, not I had to, but I wanted to work on before this. And at least I could use the last shot of everyone now in the thumbnail, since if you haven't watched the episode yet by now, it's kind of new. So I can now finish this up, and as a final reminder, starting with my recaps of The Acolyte, I will not be having an intro in front of them. I'm just going to upload those ones straight on and have them intended to be watched in order, because I'll typically upload an entire season recap, but honestly, it's just going to be way too complicated to be, not exactly complicated, but it's just too much effort to be putting all the files on here. I'll still be doing it for the Clone Wars series, which I'll get back to soon. I'm going to probably finish up the Spider-Man and Batman one and then do that. But for now, let's just go straight into it. Still stowing away on the Imperial ship, the Bad Batch prepare their plan to infiltrate Tantus. And while Rampart is still fully against everything and just wants to go back, the Bad Batch ignore him and continue on with their plans. Meanwhile, on board the Imperial ship itself, Echo has managed to take out one of the TK troopers and brings him away to take his uniform. On Tantus itself, Scorch reports to Dr. Hemlock, telling him that the Bad Batch was reported at the facility above Coruscant, and taking no chances, Hemlock orders for all Imperial forces to be alert and sends a squadron of V-Wings into the planet's atmosphere to make sure that none of the Bad Batch members are able to infiltrate Tantus, on the off chance that they were able to stow away on the ship. Once the Bad Batch have arrived on Tantus, they disconnect from the Imperial ship and begin to head towards Mount Tantus. They are quickly ambushed by Imperial forces and have to avoid fire, although the ship takes multiple hits. Meanwhile, in Tantus, Omega begins to talk with the other kids as they hear and feel the turbo laser fire against the Bad Batch. The kids begin to wonder what's going on, but Omega is quickly able to figure out that her brothers have come to rescue her and begins to enact her plan for escape. Emery puts the other doctors in charge as she goes to check what's going on. Meanwhile, the Bad Batch are forced to abandon their shuttle using the troop deployment cables to get into the forest of Wayland, and that is just in time as the shuttle is shortly destroyed after. While Hemlock orders for everyone on board the Imperial ship to have their identity checked to make sure that no one else stowed away on the ship. After putting on the TK Trooper's armor, Echo goes and begins to go through the ship's systems, as Scorch leads a group of troopers to not only investigate every Imperial that came off the ship, but also to make sure that no one is left on board the ship. The Bad Batch were quickly separated in the landing, but still quickly managed to find each other, and after discussing their disappointment that Rampart survived, they move forward to go and infiltrate Tantus. At the same time, Echo manages to take out a droid on the Imperial ship and takes his hand off so he can use it to cover up his scomp link so he can go and better infiltrate the troopers. Putting the first plans of her escape plan into motion, Omega tells the other kids to go and distract the Imperials that come in and stall for time, as she goes through the walls to try and find the best possible method of escape for them. The kids agree to, and Omega pulls panels off the wall once again and begins to go through the walls of Tantus. Crosshair and Rampart begin to discuss Crosshair's loyalty, and Crosshair points out that he was wrong about good soldiers following orders, and it all depends on the person who's giving to them if they should be followed. Rampart says that Crosshair is only selfish and that he is no different from him. Crosshair disagrees, but Rampart believes he is right. They catch back up to the main group, and Rampart still says that they shouldn't be doing this. They are quickly ambushed by one of the predators of Wayland, and while Rampart demands that they should use their blasters, the Bad Batch point out that will just draw Imperial troops to them. Rampart points out that it doesn't really matter too much if they get discovered by the Imperials if they're dead, and after realizing that they're going to be fighting us off hand to hand, Rampart runs away in terror. The Bad Batch do poorly against the Predator, and after Wrecker has a giant gash across his armor, they begin to retreat. They are quickly spotted by Imperials and are forced into a firefight, but are thankfully saved from many more as the Predator goes and begins to attack the Imperials, as the Bad Batch uses an opportunity to escape. Rampart is recaptured by the Imperial forces. Dr. Skalder comes in to check on the kids, and they begin to stall so Omega can't have enough time to get back. Meanwhile, Omega has discovered that the Zello Beast is being held on Tantus, and the kids continue to stall to make sure that Omega can get back in time. Their stalling works, and Omega is back in time before Dr. Skolder comes to her cell to check on her. After escaping the hangar, Echo makes it inside of the lab and begins to investigate into everything going on here. Dr. Emery comes in and she sees him in there. Although he's still disguised as a trooper, she quickly figures out that it is Echo and tells him that she's the only way to help Omega. Echo takes off his helmet, confirming it is him, and goes to listen to her. As Omega goes and begins to discuss the kids, the plan that she has now made for them to escape. At the same time, Hemlock goes to Rampart's cell, mainly just to gloat about how important he is and how Rampart has become irrelevant and that he is completely indispensable to the Empire and they couldn't get rid of him like they did to Rampart. Emery tells Echo about her change of heart and how Omega helped bring that out in her, and Echo decides that he can trust her and begin to move through the facility. Omega puts in the final motions for her plan, telling the kids to be able to get the medical droid alone so they can reprogram it. They do so and use it to knock out Dr. Skalder and go to Omega's room where she takes the panels off the wall and they begin their escape. Omega leads them to the Zillow's containment cell, and she goes to disable the containment field. And although the kids are discovered, Omega is able to release the Zillow Beast in time, forcing the troopers to put their attention on that. Emery and Echo reach the containment area, where they find Hemlock and Scorch supervising Dr. Skalder being taken away. Emery begins to ask what has happened, and Hemlock tells her that Omega and the kids took advantage of Dr. Skalder and used it to escape. He said that they will be recaptured and told Emery to make sure that they are because her fate was now tied with Omega's. They are then informed about the escape of the Zillow Beast, forcing Hemlock and Scorch to go and deal with that. And after they leave, Echo begins to discuss with Emery that Omega has released the Zillow Beast and used it as a distraction to better their chances of escape. And after pointing out that he's pretty proud in her, they go off to find Omega. Once they've reached Mount Tantus and see the defenses, Crosshair begs for his brothers to go find a communication station and contact Rex to assist them, and that he'll go and deal with the facility security. Both Hunter and Wrecker refuse to, saying that they're in this together and that they'll be with Crosshair and don't want him to be sacrificing himself. They then witness as the Zilla Beast tears through the walls of the facility and escapes into Wayland's jungle. Seeing this as a good opportunity, they head towards the location to be able to infiltrate Tantus. As Omega leads the kids on, she has to reassure one of them, who was afraid of heights, that it is fine. One of her brothers is afraid of heights, and he's still one of the bravest soldiers she's ever met. And they continue on to head up the ladder and head to the hangar. Hemlock is told of the Zillow's escape and is furious. He orders for Scorch to send out their fighters to go after it. And when Scorch points out that the rogue clones will be using this to be able to better infiltrate the facility, Hemlock knows that will happen and goes to activate his clone X's. And the clones go to the point where the Zillow escaped from and easily take down the Bad Batch. The primary clone X that has been hunting down the Bad Batch takes one of his fellow brothers' blades and uses it to cut off Crosshair's hand. Still moving through the facility, Echo runs across his brothers who have been captured, but knowing it's more important to save Omega and the kids first, he continues on to that, using the fact that he sees what Omega is doing and asks where the next hangar was, and if Emery knew a shortcut. She did, and he goes up and is able to save the kids just in time as they are discovered by TK troopers. Echo gives Emery the coordinates of somewhere safe to go with the kids, but him and Omega have to go back in the facility to go and save the Bad Batch and the other clones. First freeing the other clones, Echo goes and begins to give a speech that, although they can stay here and they've already sacrificed enough, he asks them for his help to go and save his brothers. The clones all agree to help, and Nalise goes up to Omega and begins to tell her that she is going to make sure that the Empire's records are destroyed and their project can never be continued. She says goodbye to Omega and heads off to do just that. Hemlock is contacted by Tarkin, who is furious at him and tells him that he'll be arriving soon to make sure that Hemlock has everything under control. Meanwhile, Rampart begins to follow Nalise to see what she is up to. He holds her at blaster point in the lab and demands to know everything about Project Necromancer. Echo and Omega lead an attack with the fellow clones to go and rescue Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair. Omega goes and tries to disable the containment cells holding her brothers, but Hemlock comes in and grabs her to stop her. He then releases a gas to go and knock out all the troopers. Nalise finishes telling Rampart everything, and being extremely intrigued and knowing that this would give him leverage to use against the Empire to have them leave him alone, he wants to take the information. Nalise refuses to let him do anything, so Rampart decides to execute the Kaminoan. Unknown to him, she was holding a thermal detonator behind her back, which she drops, and, not having enough time to escape, it detonates, killing Rampart and destroying all information about the project. As Rampart begins to gloat about his victory, he's informed by Scorch about the destruction of the lab. Omega points out that he's also lost, and Hemlock, although furious, says that he still has her, and he could restart everything with her. Omega then points out that she still has her brothers, as Wrecker breaks through his containment field, which was deactivated by Omega, and the other Bad Batch members are freed too. They begin to fight against the Clone X troopers, and Hemlock grabs Omega, attaching a pair of binders to have them be stuck together, and takes the primary clone X's communication device so he can contact his ship for escape. Wrecker tackles one of the clone X's and tells Hunter and Crosshair to go after Omega. Him and Echo take out two more of the Clone X's as Hunter and Crosshair take out the primary Clone X before chasing after Omega. Echo and Wrecker manage to take down the final Clone X, and after being beaten down, Echo tries to figure out where the rest have gone, but Wrecker is far too tired to tell him that and passes out. A storm begins on Tantus as Hemlock orders for the ship to come to him, but it is taken down by a well-placed shot, as is Scorch, who is taken down after being hit by multiple rounds of blaster fire. Hemlock holds Omega prisoner and says that if he goes down, so does she. Omega stabs him with her lockpick, and that causes him to be separated just enough for Crosshair to get off a shot, destroying the binders between them, and him and Hunter open fire on Hemlock, killing him. Omega gratefully reunites with her brothers, hugging both of them, and the Bad Batch, alongside all the clones they've liberated, escape from Tantus and head to Pabu. Mere moments after their escape, Tarkin arrives in a newly created Imperial Star Destroyer. He then goes down to the facility, seeing the destruction and seeing that there was nothing that they could do to salvage anything. He orders for all funding to be cut from this project and directed into Project Stardust. Echo watches as the freed clones and the people of Pabu get together, and being very satisfied with this, he just continues to watch on as Hunter and Omega begin to discuss their future. Hunter says he doesn't want to be doing any more fighting, and they've done enough for a lifetime, and that they're just gonna stay on Pabu, relax, and retire. The remaining members of the Bad Batch, besides Echo, come sit beside the two and Batcher and watch as everything else continues around them. Years later, the height of the Galactic Civil War, Omega goes to leave Pabu to join the rebellion as a fighter pilot. She is stopped by Hunter, who wants to see her off, and the two share a very emotional moment as Hunter wishes her the best of luck and for her to be safe. Omega points out that she is no longer a little kid and that she has been trained to take care of herself. Although Hunter does offer to go with her, Omega says they've already fought their war and this is hers to fight. She then boards the Bad Batch's new ship. She looks at Tech's goggles, which he has laying on the dashboard, and preparing to take off. She looks upon Hunter one last time, who watches as the ship rises and leaves as Omega goes to join the Rebel Alliance. Hunter just watches, very satisfied with what life has brought him and wishing Omega the best of luck. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.